Guys, Mark Ferrasci, Protect Dog Training. Out here in the boonies, getting up bright and early in the morning. I usually get up about 6:30, somewhere in there. Dogs don't let me sleep in too much. So I thought I'd have a little yak session this morning and sit down and just talk to you in regards to a lot of different things. Life in general. Living out in the boonies and loving life in regards to that. I mean, a lot less pressure than most people because I'm way out in the boonies. And then there's the other drawback. It takes me 30, 45 minutes to drive into town, to get to a store. You know, if I've got to do anything in town, it takes a 3-4 hour trip every time because I've got to do a little training. Everything's so far in between when you're out in the boonies, just the way that country living is always about. When I was a kid, that's why I have a lot of affinity for this type of lifestyle. When I was a kid, I lived way out in the boonies outside of Paso Robles, California, which is San Luis County. In that county, going through my hardships in life, I've been, like I've said before, I mentioned it, 23 foster homes. It was a hard life. I got thrown into it as a child. Just to tell the story, my mom was a drunk, and it's just reality and truth. She was more than a drunk. She was a barfly. She would sit in the bars and get drunk all day long and play with the boys. And when I was born into the situation, I had a 12-year-old sister and then a 9-year-old sister, and then I was the last in the line. I was just a baby. And the 12-year-old basically was trying to take care of mom and all three of us and herself, right? So it was a tough year for her in the year that I was born because she had to take that responsibility, and mom had really went off the deep end and was really heavy into the alcoholism. And basically in a little small coastal town, Morro Bay, California, a lot of motels and things all over the place. So guys would put her up in a motel, that kind of thing. And so my sister basically was the matriarch of the family and dragged us all over town. And it's a rough life, you know. And she passed of cancer a few years ago, and we were pretty much estranged because we were thrown into foster homes at a very young age. Her at 12, she was a whole year trying to hold that together and get handouts from the little stores and stuff like that, and banana here, some cereal here, you know, that kind of thing. And then going through that rough side, and finally somebody talked to her and made her realize she had to go to the cops. And they ended up putting us all in foster homes and separating us and putting us all in foster homes. We got to see each other, you know, when we were kids a little bit here and there, you know. Cheryl went to one foster home in Tascadero, and Cindy was in Tascadero, Paso, wherever. They went through their own trials and tribulations because I didn't know. I went through my own, and I was back and forth with my dad, who was an alcoholic as well. So alcoholism, drugs, they definitely tear up families, that's for sure. And me, I was very hyperactive, very ADHD hellion as a child, and I was a lot of a pain in the butt, believe me. And I was smart. I was very precocious, very smart, very intelligent. Didn't get much schooling because I was always, you know, chasing after the demons in my life, you know, going from one traumatic situation to another. And it was a horror story. I can look back, I can tell you all kinds of stories, but we're not here to have a pity party. I look at myself and say I'm a stronger person because of the adversity that I went through, you know. So I don't tell you the stories for that reason. I just tell you the biggest reason I even talk about this sort of thing and even bring it up in subjects is the fact that I'm a stronger person because of it. I will survive. I will persevere is kind of one of my sayings that I've always had, you know. And then I've always been lucky in the fact that this was in the country. So that being the fact, I always had Mother Nature around me. There was a San Luis Obispo, California, where all the tree huggers live, and all the well-to-do people go there. And a lot of corporate is there. It's a tourist area. I mean, it's paradise. Anybody that wants to really experience the Central Coast in California has to do that track through the 101 up the California coast, Big Sur, up to San Francisco. Right, from that region, they've had San Luis has been in the National Geographic several times over the year. Call it the last paradise because they're the ones that are holding out. They're pushing out anybody that's not a tree hugger that wants to bring, like oil. They push the oil off their coast because of the oil spills and some accidents there and everything else. And they don't want to let their pristine, beautiful Mother Nature be spoiled by man. And even then, it's still hard to keep out because man's always got corporate and greed and everything else. And business has grown into that area to a point now that there's a lot of locals that I grew up with that don't even want to go into San Luis because there's too much of a corporate footprint, right? all your different corporate stores. There's no more old town mom and pops type of a feel to it, you know. And that's true, I think, in a lot of different places in America, you know, that corporate and greed and everything else comes in. You know, about half a year ago or a year ago or so, I went ahead and started saying I won't do business with Tractor Supply anymore. And there was a big reason for that, because their corporate attitude, me being a customer, I was in there for 3 or 4 years spending all kinds of money, and they came at me with a corporate attitude and didn't respect the fact that I was a well-paying customer and that I was in there. They were more affected by the Karens of the world. You hear me talking about the Karens every now and then. It's gotten really bad over the last few years. And my theory of that is the weak-minded people that want to have some kind of control in their lives will go in and they'll see something wrong that they don't agree with, or wherever their brain spins out, and they run to the manager, or they call the cops, and it's a weak-minded type of behavior that's sad, and it's getting real bad because people are losing all the control in their life and all the stress that we've got coming at us with this whole thing going on with Trump. And it's a sad thing. Our society has been torn up real heavy. So, nope. Let me check my camera angle real quick, make sure we're filming so I'm not yakking at an empty screen. All right, we are good. All right. So that is a little bit of my history and my background and why I'm who I am. I'm very opinionated. I'm very, I don't know. I'm not book learned. I'm illiterate in math and English. I can cripple my way through it. You don't want to take advantage of me because I'll figure it out real quick. I'm not stupid. But at the same time, I lack an education because I was always being torn up from 23 foster homes. Think about the emotional turmoil. You get in with a family, you're looking to be loved as a child, so you kick out and you express yourself in certain different ways, looking to see if they love you, right? That's what it's all about as a child, right? You know, as a 5, 6, 8, 12, 12-year-old little hellion, I was running all over the place. And when I went back and forth with my dad over the years, because I got to go back with him numerous times, the courts will always let you try to have some solvency with your real family, you know what I mean? So as my dad would go through his alcoholism and be on the wagon, and he sobered up for a lot of years. In high school, finally, I moved back with him in the last couple of years of high school. I was back with my dad in St. Louis, and that allowed me to get an anchor. And that's when I started my dog training. Well, I started dog training at 12, but professionally it was at 16, 18. It ended in my high school. And then at 18 years old, I got on a bus because I loved and cared about what I did so much in my dog training, and that was my only salvation. It's one thing that people couldn't tell me I couldn't do. I was good at it, and I knew it. I knew I had a God-given talent. So that being the case, I knew what I wanted to do at a very young age. I took off at 18, straight out of high school. And 2 weeks later, I was on a bus to Oakland, California, and moved to Oakland. A little white boy moving to a place like Oakland, lived in the back of a kennel on San Pablo Avenue. If anybody knows what San Pablo Avenue is all about, nothing but hookers and whores and all the inner city mentality that goes on in that area in Oakland with the African Americans, right? And that being the case, it was a rough neighborhood. But I got along pretty good. I learned how to basically be a chameleon, fit in, right? That's the one thing I've always said with people, anybody that get near the city and want to get near the inner city, always 2 things to remember. Never show fear, but don't get too cocky that you act like you belong there. And just blend in, right? Like a chameleon, blend in, and you'll survive, right? And I always had my dogs. I had my first German Shepherd that went with me to Oakland. I had him brought to me from a friend, drove him up. I took the bus. I didn't have the dog with me when I was on the bus. So I got to Oakland without the dog, and in a few weeks I had a friend bring my Shepherd to me, and that was Sergeant, my first German Shepherd that I got. So I lived in the back of that kennel for a couple of years, eat, breathe, and sleep dogs, and just soak in what I loved, the passion that I had. I still have that passion, but I mean, back then I was just learning, So Dog Sports Magazine with Mike McCone. I mean, I can go back in history and go back and tell you about a lot of things. Seeing hard sleeves being designed and this was where all the industry was starting from. We didn't have suits back then. We only had sleeves, and Schutzen was the one that was big in the States at that time. And then as we went along, then Ring Sport came in and brought their sport into the States. And I have affinity in every one of those areas in the industry. I was around one of the top people that brought ring sport into the United States back in the day. I met Ivan Balabanov in that time period. Balabanov, I should say the name properly. I'm sorry, Ivan. Shout out to you, buddy. I'm really enjoying your videos and how you're doing your slant, getting in, going after the purely positive versus the other. It's good stuff. So a lot of people that I've touched, Caesar, I lived with him for a couple years in LA, and we've done our thing, that's for sure. So a lot of history in that regards. This year has been a year of dedicating myself to going against Trump, and I'd love to be able to be marketing myself and going out there and doing all that, being pure and staying centered on the marketing and all that. But our country is at risk, right? And so I have traded that, my dog training stuff and who I am in that regards, yakking the screen about dog training all the time, and I've started to really, I call it reposting. That's what you're doing. I go out and find anything that's valid and relative to what we have going on with Trump on my side, which is pro-democracy. I'm on the pro-democracy side. That's the split. And then you've got the fascist and the racist that are going on with the ICE and all that good stuff. It's nothing but hate, nothing but, we all know what's going on. We see it. For the life of me, I'll never understand why we didn't have enough brakes in our system to stop something like this happening. But who would have ever thought that a crazy man like this would be put into office by a bunch of racists that hated our country? The white boy, all the racism and everything else, all behind those masks. You know dang well who's behind those masks. We'll uncover it all. We'll get all our situation covered. It's going to be years and years of work to put back our system and to get things going in the right way so that we can start to overcome all the damage that he's done to our country. The damage and how the rest of the world looks at us, everything has been tarnished. He's rubbed our nose in it and put us in shame. We're all, real Americans are very, I feel so bad, that we have caused something like this across the world and our government can't clean it up. It's sad. We'll get through it though. Every day that goes by is a little bit more of the education of the American public, and every day that goes by, we'll hopefully get some of those people that are entrenched in their hate and that Christian right. That whole thing is totally bastardized. It's sad. We'll get through it. We'll overcome. We'll persevere. So that being the case, have a good day. Happy New Year's, all that good stuff. We're not even into a week of where we're at. And my goals is that we get back closer to spring, and we get into spring and summer, we get into the year out of this cold and ugly winter weather that we're dealing with, which is every year. I'll get back into my dogs and get back on it, right? Hopefully the economy will pop back. Yep, get off of me. Go on, get. Go on, go play. Go on, get. That's Bruno, my Czech Shepherd. All right, so that's pretty much it for today's yak session. I just kind of got roundabout and figured I'd yak the screen a little bit. So keep out there, keep your chin up. For those of you in Minnesota, thank you. Thank you for standing up to what we need to stand up for and for holding the line, because if everybody doesn't realize that it would have been easy in Minneapolis, Minnesota, if it would have been easy for him to do what he did in that area, they would have branched out and they would have had ice everywhere, and it would have been a whole encompassing thing to take over America. Look where his brain's thinking. He's threatening all these other countries, right? Just like Hitler, right? No two ways about it. So it's important that they hold the line and they say no, and they keep it up to a point where there's transition. It'll change. That page will flip, because they don't have any longevity. They never know what they're doing. They don't have any plans. They just go do it and deal with it as it comes, right? We need to get busy and really plan how we're going to get through this situation, and then when he's gone, how we're going to be able to put laws on the books and put all the checks and balances back where they belong, and do it in such a way that we never let something like this ever happen again. There's got to be a way of putting a brake on somebody like this, period, and being able to have enough control within our system that we never let something like this ever happen again. So, all right, thank you very much, you guys. You have a good day. Mark Ferrasci signing off from California, outside of LA, in the suburbs. Talk to you later.